Can China take on 5 countries at once? This is what happens next. In 2014, China started on an ambitious plan to build its military might. In this new plan, China will have the military capacity to take on 5 countries at once. To that end, it has started building new islands and military infrastructure in the South China Sea and along the borders of other countries. So what exactly is China planning? Stay tuned to figure that out. But before we continue further, I would request you to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. So since 2014, China has made 7 of these military islands on the country's borders, and that too without their approval. It is because of this reason that the US believes that these islands located in the South China Sea have the most potential to trigger World War III, precisely because it is bordering so many of regional powers like India and Japan. All of it starts with the CCP, or Chinese Communist Party. And why are they willing to start even a World War III? China has territorial issues with countries located in the South China Sea, which includes Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan. Japanese media has reported on more than one occasion that Chinese Coast Guard ships violated its territorial waters. But what makes this territory so important? One reason for its importance is because it is rich in mineral reserves, which includes oil reserves worth 28 billion barrels. There are vast natural gas reserves buried in that territory too, which are as much as 266 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Additionally, the region hosts about 1/3 of the world's marine biodiversity. Furthermore, the region is a very important trade route which controls about $3.37 trillion of global trade. The trade route mainly connects the Pacific and Indian Ocean ports through the Straits of Malacca and South China Sea. But why does this trade route matter to China as much? One important reason why CCP obsesses over securing this trade route for itself is that China is heavily dependent on oil imports for its colossal manufacturing industry. About 50% of its energy needs are met through the oil which sails across the Middle East and arrives through the South China Sea. In other words, China's global economic status depends on this oil trade, which takes place through this key route. Now, we can understand why the South China Sea is so important for China. But does that mean that China can simply take over it? The answer is no. According to the UN Convention in 1982, the territorial waters of each country extended about 12 nautical miles beyond its territorial limits. This makes about 22 kilometers of coastal waters. In addition, every country may form an exclusive economic zone with a range of 200 nautical miles from its shoreline. The EEZ, or the economic zone, gives the country a right to fisheries or regulate other economic affairs. In accordance with this law, every country in the region has claimed a part of the South China Sea, which has led to some overlaps between Vietnamese, Burmese, Malaysian, and Filipino claims. But this is because all of these countries are against Chinese claims over the South China Sea. Surprisingly, the CCP claims that this territory is called the 9-dash line, which is about 90% of the total area in South China Sea. But isn't that against the UN Convention we talked about earlier? Well, actually, that is true. China claims that the South China Sea was originally discovered by a Chinese explorer. And that's about it. That is the claim that CCP has over the South China Sea. To bolster its claim, China has more than 200 naval vessels stationed in the disputed South China Sea. In retaliation, most countries have renamed the part of territorial waters which are in the South China Sea. For instance, in 2012, the Philippine president signed an administrative order mandating a change in the name of the South China Sea to West Philippine Sea, referring to parts of the South China Sea which are in the nautical mile range of Philippine shoreline. Moreover, in 2017, Indonesia has changed the name of its exclusive economic zone as the North Natuna Sea. So while all of these countries are changing the names of their own economic zones, China continues building military islands. These islands consist of military personnel, airstrips, and a missile defense system. One of these islands breached the territorial integrity of the Philippines, and so the country decided to take China to a UN court. In 2016, The Hague ruled in favor of the Philippines and urged China to pack up from the area which was in dispute. Despite that ruling, the Chinese simply refused to leave, and have chosen not to act on that verdict as of yet. To further complicate matters, China has declared the airspace above the disputed land as a defensive air identification zone. This means that all aircrafts flying through the airspace will have to announce themselves to the Chinese. Understandably, this has further worsened the relations between the two countries. Now, who poses a deterrent to the Chinese military encroachment in the region? It is the U.S., since the U.S. has a lot of allies in the region. The U.S. Navy plays an important role in ensuring safety and peace to different trade routes. This protection is provided in the name of commitment to freedom of the seas. China's control over these islands directly challenges the U.S. Navy in performing these vital duties. In addition, CCP's aggressive military strategy gives it the capacity to take on 5 countries which have exclusive economic zones in the region. Do you think that China can take on these countries? Feel free to comment below. Thank you for watching till the end, and do not forget to give this video a big thumbs up before you go.